All right, Brenda, you want to just tell us who you are and then take it away?
Okay, take it away. I'm going to tell you my story, which is going to be a 7-decade overview of environmental science from a personal experience. I will sum it up with what we're all pretty well familiar with, the problems, and then we will transition to the role of the church and the solutions. So, first of all, it is Indigenous Peoples Day, and I wish to acknowledge that I live on land that was cared for by the Maidu tribe. And then 170 years ago, the gold rush brought miners to my little 5 acres, and they washed the topsoil with hydraulic mining down to the San Francisco Bay, to the Delta area. And so I have a very eroded landscape, and I am all about trying to leave the world a better place than I found it. And so redeeming the soil and growing 100 fruit trees, 80 grapevines, and 5 vegetable gardens. My vegetable gardens are about 20 by 20 so that I can keep the deer out. I spend all of my days at this point, I'm retired, trying to outsmart deer, chickens, ground squirrels, insects. It's a very worthwhile time. I have in my lifespan been called a tree hugger, been called one of those New Agers, been called a flaming liberal Democrat, but that is sticks and stones because I know who I am. I am my mother's daughter. When I was 8 years old, we had all of creation to explore, and I brought in a bouquet of wildflowers to my mother, thinking I would just make her day. And I was shocked to see how crestfallen she was. And then she explained to me, if you pick the wildflowers, they will not seed for next year, and pretty soon there will be no wildflowers. Well, you can bet I didn't pick any more wildflower bouquets for my mom. Once in a while, I pick them for me, but only when they're in abundance. So that began, and it was a revelation of the heart. I want you to understand it was not book learning that started me on the journey. My mother was as far away from science as you can possibly get. She was an artist and a literature major. She saw the world as a place of beauty, and she taught me to observe. And so as we grew, I have 3 younger brothers, and when we would get rowdy inside the house, it was always go outside and play. Take it outside, go play. It was a place where there were rattlesnakes and poison oak, but it was a place of play. I've asked my classes, my environmental science classes now 50 years later, how do they feel about going outside? In Illinois, they were terrified to go outside. And they don't even have mountain lions and bears to worry about. But there has been this shift over the last 70 years, apparently, of I'm safe in front of my TV or my video screen, and I don't want to go outside. So that's it. We move on into my late teens, early 20s. It was a time of social revolution. The world was on fire. It was the Woodstock, Vietnam, hippies, free love. And I was going to school in Pasadena at what was then Pasadena College. And then they moved down to Point Loma. The Californians were suffering terrible smog. And I would hear the sirens go off in the morning before class in Southern California, the smog alerts warning everybody, stay inside today, do not go outside. The air is not fit to breathe. Elderly, don't move, otherwise you're just gonna die. Don't let your pets out the door. And so that was the era of recognition that we have the power to destroy what is too precious to lose. And California set the standard for the Clean Air Act at that point. Why did we have to get to that extreme measure? I don't really understand because I haven't had enough psychology, but I do understand that that's what it takes. That when we recognize this was too precious to lose, then we will get motivated to dare to do something different. So I moved on, married Lori. We moved to Boston, to Eastern Nazarene College. Somebody moved the ocean from the right side of the world to the left side of the world, and it was very discombobulating to me. And I began to understand the disorientation or the loss of sense of place or the deep, deep homesickness that comes, that only Wendell Berry seems to encapsulate in his writings. But we spent graduate years at Kansas City. I was attending KU doing a master's degree in systematics and ecology. That is, systematics is how you name plants with genus and species, and animals, genus and species. And it began to hit home that all the createds are related. It was the era, believe it or not, that we had cracked the genetic code, and everything is built on the same plan, from the bacteria to us. Anthropomorphic, yes, it is. And so if it was also the era of Silent Spring, and you begin to put together, if you hurt one, you're going to affect all. And I still remember the ads of the DDT that moms were spraying on the dinner table with the food sitting there, and their children sitting around the table getting sprayed with DDT. We know better now. But then we moved back from Kansas City back to Boston. I was in my Ph.D. program in biochemical nutrition. There wasn't a job per se in ecology back in those days. And so we're moving into the early 80s. And I was taking courses on malnutrition and recognizing globally the hunger issues that were a function of women's rights, soil depletion, drought. And then I recognized we have, it was also the ALAR scare. Nobody remembers that one anymore, but all the apples got recalled off the shelves in the United States because we were importing apples that had been sprayed with ALAR. So the 80s, growing awareness of what was going wrong in our world. Love Canal, Hooker Chemical had dumped 22 tons of toxic chemicals into the water. And that began the Superfund Cleanup Act. The Native American declared back then, the earth is running a fever. We didn't acknowledge it. They weren't scientists. We didn't follow up, but we were becoming aware there is no way. You can't throw things away. Pollution is, if you don't want to drink it, don't pour it down the drain. In the 90s, we hiked the Appalachian Trail. I got to the point that I recognized there is not enough wilderness left to provide food to 1/10 of our population, let alone the whole US population, and then you think the whole world population, and that we are addicted to biotechnology, to mega agriculture, and that there is a bed that has been made that we are going to have to sleep in. Alarming to me. I also became aware that the extinction rate is equal to that of when we lost the dinosaurs. And so the loss of the biodiversity around me began to weigh on my heart. And then we had acid rain and ozone hole. And the ozone hole, in science, you do not prove that this causes that, but you say there is a strong correlation, and there has never been a correlation as strong as what we saw when CFCs went up, the ozone went down. And, oh, well, we can't do without CFCs to be a refrigerant or a propellant in our hairspray. All of a sudden, we were getting pump hairspray. We banned CFCs. Somebody did the right thing. We banned it, and Westinghouse, of all people, ran a little competition and said to our engineers, we will give you a prize if you come up with something that's better than CFCs for refrigerators. And guess what? Within less than a year, all the refrigerators were coming out with a much safer alternative. If you've got an old refrigerator, please make sure that you are environmentally responsible and get the CFCs drained out of it before it goes into a landfill. But that was, again, a lesson that there is so much resistance to, it's bad for the economy, it's bad for our lifestyle, it's going to cause problems. And yet, when we had to, technology came to the rescue. We are, I think, getting to the end of technology coming to the rescue. We have made the mistake, we, the environmental science community, in the late 90s, recognized that global climate change was upon us. We made the mistake of calling it global warming. And the problem with calling something global warming to a popular general audience is, oh, this was the coldest winter I had. This has been the coldest day I sat. And so they threw out the baby with the bathwater. They didn't get the big picture. And so we moved quickly away from global warming to talking about more dangerous weather, Katrina, climate change, and we are still transitioning into I would say terminology that is a little more acceptable to general audiences. But we have changed, we humans, anthropogenic effect, because of the carbon dioxide that we produce, burning fossil fuels, burning our forests, we have elevated the level of carbon dioxide that has altered the currents of the ocean, which is unbelievable to me. And the consequence has been summed up with to live with an ecological awareness is to live in a world of wounds. And that is the world that I live with. So I'm going to sum up the problems again, in case you missed them. I lost my paper. Overpopulation. We have too many who use too much. The biotic holocaust that is going on as we speak. It's 1,000 times the background rate of extinction. And without the World Wide Web, we cannot survive. We don't want to recognize that, but it's true. Deforestation going on, particularly everybody's aware, I think, of the loss of the Amazon and the fires in California, and then we'll go to the fires in Australia. The world's on fire. And I want to point out that trees are filtering our air, but even more important than their filtration, they are providing the very oxygen that we breathe. So we can't live without them. Hello, hello. The loss of the topsoil, the most fertile areas in the Midwest are now underneath the parking lots of the mega malls. How does that make you feel? Yeah. Excess waste, we are filling up the world with garbage. Average of 4.5 pounds per person per day. Half of that goes into recycling or composting. The other half goes into a landfill. Most of that is going to be, 1/4 would be paper. 1/3 of that would be about plastic and excess packaging. So think about the packaging when you buy grunge. Global warming is a function of carbon dioxide and methane. Methane gas is mostly the function of cows farting, if you haven't heard. And impure water, over 1/3 of the developing world is without adequate water. Acid rain killing the lakes in every lake in Sweden, many of the lakes in Northeast US. There's something wrong when you can float across the surface of a lake and look all the way down through 20 feet of water to see the bottom. It's nice, but it's wrong. Ozone depletion, we did something about it, and skin cancer has been the main concern, but at this point, the ozone's rebuilding. Thank you. And then global toxification with oil spills, pesticides. And what do? We curl up in a ball and cry ourselves to sleep every night because there's too big a problem and moms don't control the weather. No, I don't. There is hope. You have heard of reduce, reuse, recycle. I have a different 3 R's. My 3 R's are repent, refuse, and redeem. Repent, and God will heal the land. Jeremiah. Refuse to buy into American consumer lifestyle. There's a lot of peer pressure, I know, baby. I'm talking to you. Redeem. Everybody can do something. And as our pastor pointed out last week's sermon, it is ours to care. It is not ours to cure. That's God's work. And it is way too big. But if each one of us will care, then we begin to learn what the Creator God loves so that we can love what the Creator God loves, so that then we can do what the Creator God loves. If we do not learn, then how futile are our efforts? I have heard from Steve that the church should be the headlight into the darkness. And yet, I have to say, our church has not even been a tail light. And to my children, I give my blessing to go to the light. If the church is not doing its job, you follow where the light leads. So, solutions. What can you do? I quote Wendell Berry again, who has a pastoral background, as in pastoral pastoral in the sense of agriculture. But he acknowledges in his book, The Art of the Commonplace, to live, we must daily break the body and shed the blood of creation. When we do this knowingly, lovingly, skillfully, reverently, it is a sacrament. When we do it ignorantly, greedily, clumsily, destructively, it is a desecration. And Britt, since you're listening, I will go to when I kill a chicken. I do it reverently, lovingly, skillfully. I wouldn't feel right either about eating chickens that have gone through the processing plants that my daughter calls it the Holocaust of chickendom. But I think that what we have to do is, and everybody will not do everything, but everybody will find something on this list that hits home, that is a place where they can start. So our overpopulation, too many who use too much, the elephant in the room, nobody dares talk about keeping family size down below 2 per couple, delaying family, starting your family. But our chief sin in the US, and I will call it sin, is overconsumption, gluttony. We use too much and we are drowning in our stuff. So simplify, buy less than you can afford. My mother's rule of thumb, when you have to decide on what model of whatever kitchen appliance you're going to buy, don't buy the most expensive because it's probably ostentatious. Don't buy the cheapest because we don't condone what Walmart does to its employees. Buy the middle because it will probably last you the rest of your life. Loss of biodiversity. We have taken steps. Thankfully, Congress has set aside wilderness areas, our national trails, our national parks. We need to preserve corridors for wildlife to pass from one side of a freeway to the other side. We need to reduce the size of homes, not have housing developments that mandate that houses built here have to be over 4,000 square feet. Deforestation. In order to save a tree, stop your junk mail. That's just a phone call or a text. If it doesn't work within a month, I write deceased on it, return to sender. And that seems to work. So put that in your repertoire. Yes, recycle. We shred our paper and turn it into lasagna garden. Thank you very much, Jason. But in order to save a forest, rather than save a tree, eat low on the food chain. Meat should be a condiment if you eat meat, not the main course. And the chief offender for the deforestation of the rainforest is the cheap beef that everybody wants to buy at, fill in the blank, fast food place. Loss of topsoil, save an earthworm. I am known to be late to class on a rainy day because I am out there picking up the earthworms that have jumped from the fat into the fire. They have come up out of the wet earth and are drowning in the pools. Sling them up to high ground. Save the earthworms. Compost your food. America wastes 1/3 of their food. Compost it. Avoid ATVs and even bikes in the wilderness areas. The erosion that they cause is, we don't have enough manpower to redeem it after the ATVs have gone through. Excess waste. We are filling up the world with garbage, so avoid fast food, prepared food. think what that will do to your garbage can. The global warming, first thing on this list is transportation. For all of us, we are contributing about 1/4 of the carbon dioxide that goes into the atmosphere is from transportation. So buy a hybrid. Somebody's going to ask me, should I buy a Tesla? Only buy a Tesla if you live in an area where your energy is provided by hydroelectric fuel or renewable resources. It does not make sense to buy a Tesla if you're charging it from coal-fired power plants. There's a 10% conservation of energy, 90% loss in each transition. So you're better off to buy a hybrid. The fossil fuel burning, gas, coal, natural gas, wood, it's all contributing carbon dioxide. Forests in the United States absorb more carbon dioxide than they emit unless we light a match. So preserve our forests. Global warming, leaving the transportation, turn down your thermostat. Put on another layer. Britt, are you cold? You've got on 2 layers, I see. We're still warm in California, but that's it. We invested in solar panels before they were popular. Even it was the new technology. And I am glad that California has enacted laws that south-facing houses have photovoltaics on the rooftops. Nothing else makes sense in California where the sun shines. So we do need to come up with better battery because the photovoltaics don't work very well in the canyon right here when we've got 1 hour daylight coming up in very shortly. Impure water. Do any of you remember the good old days when we had a community swimming pool instead of every single house in the development with their own swimming pool? Well, there's some conviction there. We should take shorter showers. Yes, my daughters are testifying. We did put a 5-gallon bucket in the shower, and then we would haul the 5-gallon bucket into the washer so that we could do, or the toilet. We could flush the toilet with it, or we can haul it in to do the wash. Each wash normally would run through about 20 gallons of water. I would save the rinse water from the washing machine, and that would go again into flushing the toilet or starting the next load. So that's it. Water is one resource that thankfully is renewable, but pure water is something that we take for granted in the United States. Acid rain. Coal burning is the offender, and we have enacted very tough laws on scrubbers being installed in stacks, but then we have wheedled away at that with, yeah, the offsets. So thank you, honey. We need to tighten it up, and the offsets at least, I think we should make it a twofer. I mean, one chit for the pollution for 2 renewable energy sources. We have banned CFCs, I mentioned that, and responsible use of getting rid of your old air conditioners and your old refrigerators, freezers. Global toxification. The #1 consumer of pesticides in the United States is the American lawn. Why? So kill the American lawn. We have Integrated pest management is the term. Mechanical means is always my preferred method of getting rid of the pests in my garden. And generally, I'll go into great detail on what that implies. But you buy organic as much as your budget will allow, but even more important, I would say, is buy local because of the transportation cost. I'm with Barbara Kingsolver. I have quit buying bananas because it is so costly to transport. And the Costa Ricans really don't like what's happening in the banana plantations. So buy local, buy in season. If you don't know what's in season, you didn't have the joy of growing up in California, then look at the price. If it's cheap, it's in season. If it's expensive, it's been in storage for about 6 months. Put off, delay your gratification. So that is where I'm at. We need to care. So start somewhere on the list. Be a problem solver. I have these 5 acres that we tend. I have 5 miles of Highway 70 that I pick up the trash. And as I do, I remind myself the world is full of 2 kinds of people. The people who throw out trash and the people who will pick up other people's trash. I am one of those people. Forever I will be. And the reason I do it is because it matters to me. And if it matters to me, I am my mother's daughter, but I live in my Father's world. Thank you. Now, anybody want to raise an issue? How do you grow an oak tree? Put the acorn in the ground.
I have a question.
Sure.
Was Lori also crunchy, liberal, hippie, or did you have to like convert him over the years?
I was a hippie and then a Jesus freak when she married me.
His hair was longer than mine.
Oh.
He has.
In some ways, I might have been more extreme than she was about some things.
Yeah.
Mm.
But he is a very liberated husband. I will say I think he told you he was Zoom house cleaning today while I was out working in the garden, the grapevine. So I'm still outside all day long.
Growing acorns by putting them in the ground is hard when you have so many squirrels.
Okay, then you have some kind of wire mesh of any kind, an old window screen.
Oh, I'm growing them in the garage, right? They're wintering in the garage, right?
Okay, good. Then you have some space. Well, I think that when you move them out, then you will probably have a whole forest of oak trees. And please remember that they're going to be bigger than they were when you put them in the ground.
Absolutely. I'm trying to get some so that I can also donate them to parks in the area that are taking old farmland and turning them into parks, and they need trees.
Good. Do you, are they the native oak tree, which you're in the Midwest, so you have quite a white oak, black oak, jack oak, post oak variety?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to grow 3 different kinds.
Okay, great. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. DJ just chimed in here with the political, that yes, vote, number 1, vote with God bless the people of vision who saw a better world. And I get the feeling nowadays that most of our politicians are afraid to go out on a limb and take a stand outside the box. But look at their lives and see, are they practicing what they preach? And I won't make a political statement here, but that's voting is so important. Get to know your candidates at every opportunity. Attend those community meetings. Yeah.
Brenda,
Yes.
I would love to hear from your, oh, sorry, did I interrupt someone?
No,
Okay.
I moved the cursor.
I would love to hear from one of your family members. Are you all still crunchy? Do you do all the things? I'm curious about, what percentage of this like has stuck with you, I guess, or that kind of thing.
Well, I'll speak to that. Yes, my friends wonder why there's bags hanging behind, even at their house. I'll wash and reuse their plastic bags, and they're like, why are they stuck to a wall?
To dry.
Yeah, if they dry out in a day, they'll fall off, and then you can reuse them again. I became really active in surf rider a couple years ago, and living in San Diego, I'm also a paddleboard yoga instructor. The ocean is really one of my passions, and being connected with the water almost on a daily basis and seeing the amount of trash that goes into it, and the how the wildlife is affected, and also just weather patterns, etc. How the ocean dictates a lot of the wind and those kind of things. Yeah, I'm concerned about what's happening in the world, and yes, I'm very passionate about buying local. I'm part of a co-op, and being again in California, it's a little bit easier because we have almost year-round seasonal vegetables, fruits, and grains. So it's not a difficult thing to buy local here, or a sacrifice, I would say, for my diet. Yeah, so I feel like I've taken some things. There's always more that I can do personally, I know, like limiting the amount of meat I eat, or driving, planning out my route for the day, instead of bouncing around from one side of town to the next. There's all kinds of things I could always be improving on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is Becca gonna join in here?
Yeah, I'd say, probably like most people, there's areas in my life where I realize, okay, I really could cut back in this area, or, I posted in the chat about the starting just to find out that you could recycle all your plastics at the grocery store. And that was a new concept to me last year, and I didn't realize how much plastic waste I was throwing in the garbage, so that was something new to me last year. But I think in general, I would say the idea that we try to live our life with is kind of just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should, do it or have it or whatever. And I think also being married to my husband, and he's from Brazil, and seeing the difference in how, they live, and they live with much less, it's so much less of a kind of consumer mentality. Last time we came back from Brazil, I took everything out of my kitchen cabinets and donated half my stuff to Savers, because I realized that it's not that I don't have enough space, it's that I have too much stuff. So
Yeah.
kind of just like adopting that idea of like more of a minimalism kind of thinking of, you know, we don't need a bigger house. We just need less stuff. That's it. So, yeah.
And I want to point out that that's the daughter. You can hear me okay? That she would hit the floorboards when Dad would drive through town and dumpster dive. And yes, Caleb, you would appreciate that. Both of my girls shop at the thrift store. And I don't shop at all because I acquire the hand-me-downs from both of my daughters. So yes, they are living my dream.
I would say that in the 15 years that I've known Lori and Brenda, you know, where I grew up in a very small town in Western Washington, I was the crazy, crunchy, liberal person. And then I met Lori and Brenda and I realized, oh, I have so much to learn here. And my husband, who is Lori's youngest brother, they grew up in a very different environment. Lori stayed in California. There's significant age difference between the two of them. And so Jeff grew up here in Western Washington. And I find that anytime we visit Lori and Brenda, we learn more and more ways that we can be better. And so now I am washing all of the plastic bags, and I'm trying to bring Jeff along on the whole, let's reuse them now, even though, you know, we've used them once, we can continue to use them for something other than backpacking gear.
Yeah.
So these two have been really great influences and mentors for us. And I appreciate all the ways that they help us. And someday, Brenda, you'll get to come up and see my crazy garden as I try to rewild it for my squirrels and raccoons and opossums that visit my backyard.
Yes. Yeah.
Man, that's so many good things here, and you really like condensed it down to like a 40-minute. Like I was like, oh my word, I'm so glad we're recording this. And the 5-gallon bucket thing, I don't know how my wife's gonna go with that, but I'm just wondering now if I just put one in the shower just to see. I think the kids will love it, honestly.
Yeah. Put some ducky toys in there.
Yeah. And it's cool to, just put some toys in there. It's cool to hear you guys kind of reflect on that, because you know, I think a lot of the people that I end up talking to are really worried and wondering about like their family and how to integrate you know, any of this into family life, and you know, and what we're doing to our children in the long run. And yeah, you said something earlier. Oh, everyone will not do everything, but everyone must kind of like find their thing, you know. And I think that's really important, because I think the whole conversation can just be so overwhelming and paralyzing. And I think especially if already just, you know, with everything else in the world aside, becoming woke about climate change and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I feel like it's so important to just bring it down into these graspable, like what is the thing. And anyway, I digress, but I am curious if there is a thing in particular that stands out to you in this point in your life in reference to the local church, and maybe, you know, out of the things that we all could be doing as the local church or should be doing, or saying, like, what are some of the things maybe that you think are most poignant for us? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think our local church is on the left to right spectrum, as extreme right as you can go on head in the sand, deny, you know, those names that I told you I got called, they came from my church that I've been a member of 3 generations, you know, 70 years, and they should know me, but that's very painful. And so there's just an education, awareness. And I have to say, thankfully, we've got a pastor who is at least trying to gently move us in what I perceive the right direction. We need to hear in this extreme right, I would say, we need to hear it from the pulpit. And that is Lori's life calling, is to give the pastors the tools they need to do that. If I was in a church such as Matthew's, I love the model of the community garden, and it's sad, yes, that it's a real popular idea for a few years and then everybody's done with that. But I think even if it is only a few years, it's worthwhile starting so that it's a visible, we care to a community. And then if you need to grow beyond that into something else, do it, but start. And so the community garden to me is just stewardship issue. If you're already clear out here with on the left end, I think I hope that you spawn some people who will run for political office.
I also want to say, you know, bringing it back to what you think your family, you know, is going to think when the 5-gallon bucket gets put in the shower. It does start at home, and being just doing and living the way that is responsible, even though other people might not agree with it, even your own family members. You know, I knew we were different, and I knew something was we weren't the same as other families. But you know, as I grew up, I learned to appreciate and understand what was happening. So starting with your own family members or your own roommates, or just living the life that you know is right, and letting the community see that as an example. Because like, I just, you know, my roommates are catching on, and you know, it's just, you just kind of gotta live your example.
And Caleb, I will say again that the with 70 years of history and seeing what's happening, there's this just devastating sadness that can overwhelm me. But I do take comfort that none of my granddaughter's generation know what I know. And I comfort myself that as human beings, we are here because we've got 70,000 years of history of caring for one another, for caring for the weakest one, for loving each other. And so that's going to endure. I'm sure that was God's plan. But then I also, it's Indigenous Peoples Day, I'll quote the Diné prayer: beauty above me, beauty below me, beauty to the left of me, beauty to the right of me, beauty before me, beauty behind me. May I walk in beauty all this day. Now, do you recognize where that parallels? The Celtic prayer, Jesus above me, Jesus below me, the triune God. But we, as the creatures made in God's image, are going to see beauty. And that is the message of the church, that yes, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, but we as people of God have hope. And do not lose sight of where the hope lies. We live in a beautiful world.